The playground on New Geneva colony buzzed with the laughter of children from a dozen different species. 7-year-old Marcus Chin pushed his hoverswing higher, his dark eyes sparkling with joy as he called out to his best friend Zextai, a young Vraxian whose blue scales shimmered in the artificial sunlight. The colony had been humanity's first successful joint settlement with alien races, a symbol of peace that had taken 30 years to build. Marcus didn't see the shadow that fell across the playground until it was too late. The Kethmori warship descended like a predator, its black hull drinking in the light. Emergency sirens began their wailing song, but the attack came swift and merciless. Plasma beams carved through the settlement's defensive shields as if they were made of paper. Buildings crumpled under the assault, their twisted metal frames reaching toward the sky like desperate fingers. In the chaos, Marcus tried to run. His small legs carried him toward the emergency shelters, but a stray plasma bolt caught him in the back. The child fell forward, his body hitting the ground with a soft thud that somehow echoed louder than the explosions around him. Zextai reached him first, the young Vraxian's claws gentle as he turned his friend over. "Marcus," Zextai whispered, his voice breaking. The human boy's eyes were already growing dim, but he managed a small smile. "Tell my mom I wasn't scared," Marcus said, his voice barely audible over the sounds of destruction. Then, the light faded from his eyes, and Earth lost one of its children to the void. The Kethmori had come without warning, without provocation. They were a warrior race that viewed other species as either threats to be eliminated or resources to be harvested. Humanity, in their estimation, fell into the first category. The attack on New Geneva was meant to be a demonstration of power, a message that humans should retreat to their home system and never venture into the stars again. They had not counted on what humanity would do when one of their children died far from home. Captain Sarah Chen received the news while aboard the research vessel Endeavour, 3 sectors away from New Geneva. The words hit her like a physical blow, driving the breath from her lungs and the strength from her legs. Marcus had been her nephew, her brother's only son, the little boy who drew pictures of spaceships and dreamed of seeing the galaxy. "Ma'am?" Lieutenant Torres stepped forward, concern etched on his face. "Captain Chen, are you all right?" Sarah straightened, her grief transforming into something harder, something that burned cold and pure. "Get me a direct line to Earth Command," she said, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her chest. Priority Alpha. The response from Earth came within hours. Every human ship in known space received the same message, transmitted on emergency frequencies in a dozen languages. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of a species' fury. To all human vessels and installations, Admiral Harrison's voice crackled through the static. By order of the United Earth Government, all civilians are to return to Sol System immediately. All military personnel are to report to designated rally points. Authorization Omega 77 is now in effect. Captain Chen knew what Omega 77 meant. Every human in the fleet did. It was the code that had never been used, the one that authorized measures beyond conventional warfare. It meant that humanity was no longer playing by the rules of civilized galactic society. Across human space, ships began to move. Merchant vessels dumped their cargo and set course for Earth. Research ships abandoned their missions. Even the deep space explorers, those brave souls mapping the galaxy's furthest reaches, turned their ships toward home. But it wasn't retreat that drove them. It was preparation. On Earth, the great shipyards that had built humanity's first starships roared back to life. But, this time, they weren't building explorers or traders. The blueprints that emerged from the United Earth Engineering Corps were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Where other races built ships to carry them between worlds, humanity was building something that would redefine the very concept of a warship. The Kethmori, meanwhile, celebrated their victory. Their fleet commander, War Prime Kethtok, stood on the bridge of his flagship and gazed out at the ruins of New Geneva colony. The settlement burned nicely, sending pillars of smoke into the atmosphere. It would serve as a fitting monument to Kethmori superiority. "The humans flee like frightened prey," reported his intelligence officer. "Our sensors show massive movement toward their home system. They abandon their colonies without even attempting to defend them." Keftok's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. As expected. Humans may be clever, but they lack the warrior spirit. They will cower in their home system and trouble us no more. But intelligence reports from Kethmori Deep Space Scouts began to paint a different picture. Human ships weren't just fleeing, they were converging. And the energy signatures coming from Sol system suggested industrial activity on a scale that defied understanding. War Prime, the scout captain's voice crackled through the communication array. I must report unusual readings from the human home system. Their asteroid belt shows massive mining operations, and there are gravitational anomalies that suggest the transmission cut off abruptly. When contact was re-established 6 hours later, the scout ship reported that it had been forced to retreat due to the appearance of what they described as weapons platforms the size of small moons. Kevtok dismissed the report as sensor malfunctions or cowardly exaggeration. Humans were a young species, barely 300 years into space travel. They couldn't possibly pose a threat to the Kethmori Empire, which had conquered half the galaxy over the course of millennia. He would learn the depths of his mistakes soon enough. In the Sol system, something unprecedented was taking shape. The asteroid belt, once a scattered collection of rock and metal, was being systematically harvested. Massive mining ships, each the size of a city, carved chunks of ore from asteroids and fed them into processing stations that operated around the clock. The metal and rare elements flowed in an endless stream toward Earth's moon, where construction had begun on something that challenged the imagination. Dr. Elizabeth Vasquez stood in the observation deck of Luna Station and watched humanity build its answer to Marcus Chen's death. The structure taking shape in the moon's shadow was beyond massive, it was planetary. Kilometers of hull plating gleamed in the light of distant Sol, while weapon batteries the size of skyscrapers grew like metal forests along its surface. How long until completion? Asked General Morrison, his weathered face grim as he studied the construction reports on his tablet. 18 months, Dr. Vasquez replied. We're using every shipyard, every manufacturing facility, every resource humanity has ever developed. We've even converted civilian factories to produce component parts. The entire species is focused on this single project. And, you're certain it will work? Vasquez turned to face him, her eyes reflecting the fire of Earth's resolve. General, we're not just building a warship. We're building a statement. When the Kethmori see what we've created, they'll understand that humanity doesn't just mourn its dead, we avenge them. The project had no official name in the military records. Engineers called it the Luna Construction Project, but everyone knew what it really was. It was Earth's promise to Marcus Chen and every human child who would come after him. It was a declaration that those who killed human children would face consequences beyond their comprehension. As construction continued, reports filtered in from across the galaxy. Other alien species watched humanity's response with growing unease. The peaceful humans who had sought friendship and cooperation were gone, replaced by something harder and more focused. Trade agreements were abandoned, diplomatic missions recalled, and research partnerships dissolved as humanity turned inward. The Galactic Council convened emergency sessions to discuss the human response. Ambassador Veltar of the Zephyrian Confederation spoke for many when he addressed the assembly. The humans were our partners in exploration, our allies in scientific advancement. Now they build weapons in the dark between worlds and speak only of vengeance. We have awakened something in them that perhaps should have remained sleeping. But the Council's debates were meaningless now. Humanity had withdrawn from galactic society not out of fear, but to prepare. They were taking time to build something that would ensure no human child would ever again die helpless and alone on a distant world. Captain Sarah Chen stood once more on the bridge of a ship, but this vessel was unlike any that had carried her before. The bridge was a cathedral of purpose, its viewports offering a vista of the construction that surrounded Earth's moon. Thousands of ships moved in perfect coordination, their hulls gleaming with the determination of a species united in grief and purpose. Status report, she commanded, though she already knew the answer. Every day brought them closer to completion, every hour added new weapons to humanity's growing arsenal of retribution. All systems operating within normal parameters, Captain, reported her new operations officer. Construction is ahead of schedule. Engineering estimates completion in 14 months. Sarah nodded, her eyes fixed on the growing structure that would carry humanity's answer to the stars. Somewhere in the galaxy, the Kethmori continued their raids and conquests, believing they had cowed another species into submission. They had no idea what was coming for them. The child Marcus Chen had died holding onto his friend's hand, whispering brave words as his life faded away. But his death had planted something in the hearts of 40 billion humans, something that grew stronger with each passing day. It was not hatred, though hatred was part of it. It was not simple vengeance, though vengeance would be served. It was the absolute, unwavering determination that no human child would ever again die defenseless under alien guns. Earth was building more than a warship, they were forging the instrument of that promise, a weapon that would make the galaxy understand the cost of spilling human blood. In 18 months, the Kethmori would learn why species across the galaxy whispered warnings about awakening the protective instincts of humans. They would discover that humanity's greatest strength was not their intelligence or their adaptability, but their willingness to move heaven and earth to protect their own. The construction continued, day and night, as Earth prepared to keep its promise to a 7-year-old boy who had died far from home. 14 months after Marcus Chen's death, the galaxy received its first glimpse of what humanity had been building in the darkness beyond Luna. The ship, though calling it a ship seemed inadequate, emerged from behind Earth's moon like a new planet awakening to consciousness. Its hull stretched for over 2,000 kilometers, a mass of metal and purpose that dwarfed anything ever conceived by galactic civilization. Commander Yara Okafor stood in the central command center, a vast chamber buried deep within the vessel's core. Around her, 10,000 of humanity's finest minds worked at stations that controlled systems beyond the comprehension of lesser beings. This was not merely a warship, it was humanity's will made manifest in metal and energy. Engineering reports all primary systems online, announced Chief Engineer Kowalski, his voice carrying across the command center through neural link communications. Reactor output is stable at 47% of maximum capacity. We're ready to begin field tests. The ship had been christened Terra's Vengeance in a ceremony that drew representatives from every human colony. But, among its crew, it was known by a simpler name, Marcus. It seemed fitting that the instrument of humanity's response should carry the name of the child whose death had birthed it. Captain Sarah Chen, now promoted to Fleet Admiral and Commander of Terra's Vengeance, reviewed the tactical displays that surrounded her command position. Each screen showed different aspects of the ship's awesome capabilities. Weapon batteries that could sterilize continents. Shield generators that drew power from the ship's own gravitational field. Engines that bent spacetime itself to move their massive vessel across the stars. Admiral, reported Lieutenant Commander Park from the sensor station. We're receiving priority transmissions from Galactic Council observers. They're requesting permission to inspect the vessel and assess its compliance with interstellar warfare conventions. Sarah's expression didn't change, but those who knew her could see the cold fire that burned behind her eyes. Send them our response. Terra's Vengeance operates under no authority save that of humanity itself. We will comply with no conventions that did not protect our children. The Galactic Council had watched humanity's construction project with growing alarm. The peaceful species that had once sought membership in their organization was building something that challenged every assumption about space warfare. Traditional conflicts between species involved fleets of ships, each roughly equivalent in size and capability. Terra's Vengeance was a paradigm shift that made their carefully maintained balance of power obsolete. Ambassador Zextai, now grown from the child who had held Marcus Chen as he died, served as one of the few non-human observers permitted aboard the massive vessel. The young Vraxian walked through corridors that could house entire cities, his blue scales reflecting the soft light that emanated from walls lined with quantum processors. The ship was not merely large, it was a fusion of technologies that humanity had developed in their fury, advances that should have taken centuries compressed into little more than a year. Your people work miracles born of grief, Zextai observed as Admiral Chen escorted him through the engineering sections. Around them, human technicians moved with the precision of those who saw their work as sacred duty. Every bolt they tightened, every system they calibrated, was another step toward ensuring that Marcus Chen's death would not be meaningless. Grief is a powerful teacher, Sarah replied. It shows us what we're truly capable of when everything we value is threatened. They paused before a massive viewport that offered a view of the ship's forward sections. Weapon batteries stretched away into the distance like metal mountains, each one capable of cracking a planet's crust. But it was not the weapons that made Terra's Vengeance truly terrifying, it was the intelligence that guided them. The ship's artificial intelligence system was unlike anything created before. Where other species built AI to serve specific functions, humanity had created something more ambitious. The Marcus AI was designed to learn, to adapt, and to ensure that no enemy would ever again catch humanity unprepared. It processed information from across the galaxy, analyzed the military capabilities of every known species, and continuously refined its understanding of warfare itself. Hello, Ambassador Zextai, the AI's voice spoke directly to the Vraxian through his neural implant. The voice was warm, curious, unmistakably that of a child. I have reviewed historical records of your friendship with my namesake. Thank you for being with him at the end. Zextai's scale shifted to deep blue, the Vraxian equivalent of profound emotion. You speak with his voice. I carry his memory, the AI replied. Every human child who might face what he faced will have the protection he did not. That is my purpose. Meanwhile, in the depths of Kethmori space, Warprime Kethtok received reports that challenged his understanding of reality. His intelligence officers described a human vessel that defied classification, a mobile fortress that seemed to operate by its own physical laws. But, Kethtok dismissed these reports as the fantasies of frightened subordinates. Impossible, he declared, his mandibles clicking in derision. No species has the resources to build such a thing. The humans are clever, but they lack the industrial capacity for projects of this magnitude. His chief intelligence officer, a scarred veteran named Kroktar, disagreed. Warprime, I have personally reviewed the sensor data. This vessel exists, and it carries weapons that could threaten our entire battle fleet. Keftok's response was swift and brutal. Kroktar's objections earned him a demonstration of Kethmori discipline that left him broken but alive, a reminder to others about questioning their commander's wisdom. The Warprime would not allow fear of human innovations to weaken his force's morale. But, across the galaxy, other species were taking humanity's creations seriously. The Zephyrian Confederation began retrofitting their defensive installations with new technologies designed specifically to counter planet-scale threats. The Altarian Empire withdrew their fleets to defensive positions around their core worlds. Even the ancient Void Dwellers, being so old they remembered the galaxy's first civilizations, emerged from their hidden realms to observe humanity's newest creation. Dr. Elizabeth Vasquez stood in Terra's Vengeance's primary laboratory, surrounded by instruments that pushed the boundaries of known science. Her team had not stopped innovating when the ship's construction ended. They continued developing new technologies, new ways to project humanity's power across the stars. The death of Marcus Chen had not just motivated the building of a warship, it had accelerated human development by centuries. Show me the quantum displacement cannon, she instructed her lead researcher, Dr. Hammond. The weapon that materialized in the holographic display was elegant in its simplicity and terrifying in its implications. Where traditional space weapons relied on kinetic force or energy discharge, the quantum displacement cannon manipulated reality itself. It could remove matter from existence, creating voids in space that even light could not escape. Range? Vasquez asked. Theoretically unlimited, Hammond replied. The quantum field effect propagates at faster than light speeds. We could target enemy vessels from different star systems. Vasquez nodded, making notes on her personal tablet. Every weapon system aboard Terra's Vengeance represented humanity's determination to ensure their children could explore the galaxy safely. They were not building these capabilities for conquest, they were creating them for protection on a scale the universe had never witnessed. The ship's cultural center housed a different kind of monument to human determination. In a vast chamber lit by artificial starlight, holographic projections showed images of every human colony, every settlement where human children played and learned and dreamed of the future. At the center of the display stood a life-sized image of Marcus Chen, frozen at the moment of his death but somehow still radiating the joy and wonder that had defined his short life. Families throughout human space sent messages to be stored in Marcus's memorial chamber. Parents recorded promises to their children. Children drew pictures of the stars they hoped to see. Scientists dedicated their discoveries to the boy who had died reaching for the sky. The chamber became a repository of humanity's dreams, a reminder of what they fought to protect. Admiral Chen visited the memorial chamber every day, often bringing members of her command staff to show them why they served. Standing before Marcus's image, hardened military officers wept openly, their tears falling for a child they had never met but whose death had changed everything. He was just a little boy, Admiral Chen said during one such visit, her words carried by the chamber's recording systems to the ship's historical archives. He wanted to see the galaxy, to make friends with aliens, to learn about the wonders of space. They killed him for being human, for existing where they didn't want him to be. We will ensure that never happens again. Terra's Vengeance completed its shakedown cruise in the outer Sol system, its massive engines moving the ship through tests that demonstrated capabilities beyond previous imagination. The vessel could accelerate to near-light speeds despite its enormous mass. Its shields could deflect entire solar flares. Its weapons could precision target mosquitoes from orbital distances or lay waste to continental areas with equal facility. But, perhaps most impressive was the ship's crew. 40,000 humans from every corner of human space had volunteered to serve aboard Terra's Vengeance, creating a community that represented the best of their species. Engineers who had abandoned promising careers to help build the ship. Scientists who had dedicated their research to developing its systems. Military personnel who saw their service as a sacred trust. They were not soldiers seeking glory or advancement. They were guardians preparing to keep a promise made in grief and sealed in determination. When Terra's Vengeance finally left Sol System, it would carry with it humanity's absolute commitment to protecting their children among the stars. The ship's departure from Earth orbit attracted observers from across the galaxy. Diplomatic vessels from dozens of species gathered at what they considered safe distances to witness humanity's monster take its first steps into deep space. Their sensors recorded energy readings that challenged their understanding of physics, gravitational distortions that suggested technologies beyond their comprehension. As Terra's Vengeance began its journey toward Kethmori space, every human aboard understood their mission with crystal clarity. They were not seeking conquest or territory. They were delivering a message written in the language of overwhelming force: humanity would protect its children, no matter the cost. The galaxy watched in fascination and horror as the massive vessel accelerated beyond the Sol System's heliopause, its destination known to all who monitored its course. The Kethmori Empire would soon discover that killing a human child carried consequences they had never imagined possible. Warprime Kethtok dismissed the approaching threat until his long-range sensors finally registered Terra's Vengeance at the edge of Kethmori space. The readings were so far beyond normal parameters that he initially assumed equipment malfunction. No single vessel could generate energy signatures that matched small stars, could carry weapons that registered as planetary threats. But, as reports flooded in from every sensor station in his empire, Kethtok finally understood that his civilization faced something entirely outside their experience. Humanity had not built a warship, they had created an instrument of judgment that carried the concentrated fury of an entire species. The message that preceded Terra's Vengeance was broadcast on all frequencies in perfect Kethmori language: "You killed our child. Earth remembers. Earth answers. Prepare yourselves." The Kethmori battle fleet assembled at the edge of their home system was a sight that had terrified civilizations for millennia. 3,000 warships arranged in perfect combat formation, their hulls bristling with weapons that had conquered half the known galaxy. Warprime Kethtok stood on his flagship's command deck, surrounded by the finest military minds his species had produced, confident that no single vessel could threaten the might of the Kethmori Empire. That confidence lasted exactly 47 minutes after Terra's Vengeance dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The human ship emerged from spacetime like a new world being born, its massive bulk casting shadows across the Kethmori fleet despite the vast distances between them. Sensor operators throughout the enemy formation stared at readings that broke their instruments, energy signatures that registered as impossible, gravitational distortions that suggested the humans had somehow weaponized physics itself. Warprime reported his chief sensor technician, her voice shaking with disbelief: "The human vessel's mass readings are inconsistent with known materials. It appears to be constructed from matter that shouldn't exist under normal spacetime conditions." Kethtok's mandibles clicked in irritation. "Explain." "The ship appears to be partially phased into higher dimensional space. Our weapons may not be able to achieve target lock, and, even if they do, the damage potential is unclear." Admiral Saracen stood in Terra's Vengeance's command center, watching the Kethmori fleet spread before them like insects preparing to attack a mountain. Around her, 40,000 human voices coordinated through neural links, their combined intelligence focused on a single purpose. They had come to deliver justice for Marcus Chen, and nothing in this galaxy would prevent them from completing their mission. "Admiral," reported Commander Yara Okafor from the tactical station, "enemy fleet is moving to encirclement formation. They're attempting to surround us." Sarah almost smiled. "Let them begin the demonstration." The first weapon Terra's Vengeance fired was not designed to destroy, it was built to educate. The quantum resonance pulse swept through the Kethmori formation like a whisper of death, its energy signature calibrated to interact with the neural pathways of Kethmori physiology. For 13 seconds, every member of the enemy fleet experienced the exact sensations Marcus Chen had felt as he died: the fear, the pain, the desperate hope for rescue that never came. 3,000 warships suddenly found their crews gasping for breath, their combat efficiency shattered by the shared experience of a human child's final moments. Many collapsed at their stations. Others wept uncontrollably. A few went insane on the spot, unable to process the depth of innocent suffering they had just experienced. That was his death, Admiral Chen broadcast on all Kethmori frequencies. A 7-year-old boy who wanted nothing more than to play with his alien friend and dream about the stars. You made him feel that terror, that abandonment, that despair. Now you know what you killed. War Prime Kethtalk struggled to maintain his composure as his bridge crew recovered from the neural assault. The demonstration had been more effective than any conventional weapon. It had shown his forces exactly what they were fighting for, and many found their resolve wavering. But Kethtalk himself remained unmoved. He had ordered the deaths of countless innocents across the galaxy. The suffering of one human child meant nothing to him. All ships, commence attack pattern Destroyer 7, he commanded. Concentrate all firepower on that abomination. Show the humans that the Kethmori Empire yields to no one. The response from the Kethmori fleet was overwhelming by any conventional standard. Millions of plasma bolts, antimatter torpedoes, and exotic energy weapons struck Terra's vengeance simultaneously, their combined destructive force sufficient to crack planets. The space around the human ship became a storm of deadly energy that should have vaporized any vessel. But Terra's vengeance absorbed the assault as if it were gentle rainfall. The ship's dimensional shielding scattered the incoming weapons fire across multiple layers of reality, while its adaptive armor converted the energy into additional power for its own systems. When the light faded, the human ship remained exactly as it had been, undamaged, unmoved, and ready to respond. Dr. Elizabeth Vasquez monitored the defensive systems from her station in the ship's research section. Every piece of alien technology striking their shields provided new data, new insights into the weapons humanity might face in the future. The Kethmori attack was not just failing to damage Terra's vengeance, it was teaching the ship how to become even more formidable. Adaptive learning protocols are functioning perfectly, she reported to Admiral Chen. The ship is already developing countermeasures for 17 different weapon types. If they attack again, their effectiveness will drop by approximately 60%. They won't get the chance, Sarah replied. Begin precision targeting. I want their fleet disabled, not destroyed. They need to live to carry our message to the rest of their empire. Terra's vengeance began its response with surgical precision that demonstrated the vast gulf between human and Kethmori technology. Quantum displacement beams reached out across spacetime to selectively remove weapon systems from enemy ships. Engine cores simply ceased to exist, leaving vessels dead in space but intact. Command centers found their computer systems replaced with recordings of Marcus Chen's laughter, a sound that echoed through darkened ships like the voice of innocence itself. The Marcus AI coordinated the assault with efficiency that bordered on prescient. It tracked 3,000 enemy vessels simultaneously, analyzed their capabilities in real time, and neutralized each one in the most effective manner possible. Some ships found their weapons fused into inert metal. Others had their life support systems modified to play children's songs until the crew surrendered. A few simply discovered their ship's computers replaced with educational programs about human child development. This is impossible, Kethtalk snarled as reports flooded in from across his fleet. Our ships are being disabled by technologies that don't exist. How can they target our systems so precisely? His intelligence officer, the same one who had warned him about human capabilities and paid for that warning with broken bones, spoke carefully. War Prime, perhaps we should consider negotiation. This vessel demonstrates capabilities beyond our ability to counter. The suggestion earned him another beating, but this time other officers watched without approval. They could see their fleet being systematically dismantled by forces they couldn't comprehend. Many began to question whether their War Prime's aggression was worth facing extinction. Aboard Terra's Vengeance, Ambassador Zextai watched the battle unfold from the observation deck. The young Vraxian had specifically requested to witness humanity's response to his friend's death, and what he saw challenged every assumption he had held about the peaceful species he thought he knew. Your people have become something different, he observed to Admiral Chen when she joined him at the viewport. This is not the humanity that sought friendship among the stars. No, Sarah agreed. That humanity died with Marcus. What we've become is what the galaxy created when it showed us that our children weren't safe to explore and dream and grow. We tried to be your friends. We tried to be partners in discovery. But, when you killed our child, you taught us that the universe only respects strength. Around them, the precision assault continued. Terra's Vengeance moved through the disabled Kethmori fleet like a shepherd tending sheep, ensuring that each vessel was completely neutralized while keeping their crews alive. This was not destruction for its own sake, it was education through overwhelming demonstration of capability. The Marcus AI spoke to individual Kethmori ships as it disabled them, its childlike voice carrying messages that burned into the consciousness of the alien warriors. Marcus wanted to be friends with aliens, it told one crew as their weapons systems dissolved. He drew pictures of Kethmori ships and thought they looked beautiful. You killed him for being different from you. The psychological impact was devastating. Hardened Kethmori warriors who had slaughtered civilizations without remorse found themselves confronting the reality of what they had destroyed. They had killed hope itself, extinguished the light of wonder in a child's eyes, and now faced the consequences of that choice. War Prime Kethtok watched his empire's finest fleet reduced to floating debris in a matter of hours. But it was not the military defeat that broke his spirit, it was the realization that he had awakened something in humanity that would never again sleep. Terra's vengeance was not just a ship, it was proof that some species, when pushed beyond their breaking point, became forces of nature that reshaped the galaxy itself. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the human vessel. They're offering terms." Terms? Kettok's voice was barely a whisper. Admiral Chen's image appeared on the main screen, her expression calm but implacable. "War Prime Kettok, you stand accused of murdering a human child. Your entire fleet has been disabled to demonstrate humanity's capability to exact justice. But we are not here for conquest, we are here to ensure this never happens again. What do you want?" Kettok asked, his defiance finally cracking. "Complete withdrawal from human space. Reparations to the families affected by your attack on New Geneva colony. And, most importantly, you will carry a message to every species in this galaxy: humanity protects its children. Any who harm our young will face the full weight of our response." Kettok looked around his Bridget officers who no longer met his eyes, at displays showing the ruins of his fleet, at the evidence of his civilization's complete defeat. "And, if we refuse?" Sarah's expression didn't change. "Then, we will demonstrate what Terra's vengeance was truly built to do. This has been a measured response, War Prime. Do not force us to show you what an unmeasured one looks like." The threat hung in space like a physical presence. Every being in the Kethmori fleet understood that they had witnessed only a fraction of the human ship's capabilities. The precision of the assault, the impossible technologies, the sheer scale of the vessel, all of it pointed to a species that had transcended normal limitations through pure determination. Commander Yara Okafor stood beside Admiral Chen as they waited for Kethtok's response. "Admiral, sensor readings indicate massive gravitational distortions forming around the enemy fleet. I think they're preparing to retreat." "Good," Sarah replied. "Let them run. Let them tell everyone what they've seen here. The galaxy needs to understand that humanity has changed." As if summoned by her words, messages began arriving from across known space. The Galactic Council requesting immediate diplomatic contact. The Zephyrian Confederation offering formal apologies for not intervening in the New Geneva attack. Dozens of species that had remained neutral suddenly, expressing interest in human protection agreements. The demonstration of Terra's vengeance had accomplished more than military victory, it had rewritten the political landscape of the galaxy. Species that had viewed humanity as newcomers now recognized them as a force that could protect or destroy civilizations at will. But, aboard the massive ship, the crew remained focused on their primary mission. They had come to seek justice for Marcus Chen, and they would not depart until that justice was complete. The boy's death had created Terra's vengeance, but his memory would determine how that power was used. In the memorial chamber, holographic flowers from human colonies across the galaxy materialized around Marcus's image. Children from a dozen worlds sent drawings and poems, their artwork creating a garden of innocence that bloomed in the heart of humanity's most terrible weapon. "He would have loved this," Zextai whispered as he stood before his friend's memorial. Marcus always believed that different species could be friends. Even after what happened to him, you humans are trying to create peace through strength. Admiral Chen nodded. He died believing in friendship between species. We won't let his faith be meaningless. But we'll also ensure that no other child pays the price for that belief. The Kethmori fleet began its retreat, their disabled ships limping away from the scene of their humiliation. But they carried more than just news of military defeat, they bore witness to humanity's transformation from peaceful explorers to galactic guardians willing to move mountains to protect their young. Terra's Vengeance remained in position, its sensors monitoring the withdrawal while its crew prepared for the next phase of their mission. They had demonstrated their power, but now they needed to ensure the lesson was understood throughout the galaxy. 6 months after the demonstration that humbled the Kethmori Empire, Terra's Vengeance established a permanent station in the neutral zone between human and alien space. The massive ship became more than a weapon, it evolved into a symbol of humanity's new role in galactic civilization. Where once humans had sought membership in existing power structures, they now created their own center of authority that other species approached with a mixture of respect and carefully controlled fear. Admiral Sarah Chen walked through the ship's expanded diplomatic quarters, spaces that had been hastily constructed to accommodate the endless stream of alien ambassadors seeking audience with humanity. Representatives from civilizations that had ignored human overtures for centuries now waited weeks for the chance to speak with Earth's leadership, their attitudes transformed by the reality of Terra's Vengeance's capabilities. "Admiral," reported Commander Yara Okafor, "we have delegations from 17 species requesting formal protection agreements. The Altarian Empire is offering exclusive trading rights in exchange for human security guarantees. The Void Dwellers have emerged from their hiding places specifically to establish contact with us." Sarah paused at a viewport that offered a view of the approaching diplomatic vessels. Each ship maintained careful distances from Terra's Vengeance, their crews all too aware of what they had witnessed in Kethmori space. The galaxy's power structure had shifted dramatically, with humanity now occupying the position of ultimate arbiter that no species dared challenge directly. "Schedule them in order of their historical treatment of human colonies," Sarah instructed. "Those who offered aid or shelter to our people get priority. Those who ignored our requests for help can wait." The message was clear throughout galactic space: humanity remembered everything. They recalled which species had welcomed human explorers and which had turned them away. They knew who had offered assistance during crises and who had remained indifferent to human suffering. The galaxy's past treatment of humanity now determined its future relationship with Earth's new order. In the depths of Terra's Vengeance, Dr. Elizabeth Vasquez oversaw research projects that pushed the boundaries of known science even further. The ship had become a mobile laboratory where humanity's greatest minds worked to ensure their species never again faced extinction-level threats. Every day brought new innovations, new technologies that cemented humanity's position as the galaxy's dominant force. "The Quantum Consciousness Transfer Project is showing promising results," Dr. Hammond reported during their daily briefing. "We've successfully uploaded and downloaded complete human personalities, preserving them even through physical death. If implemented fleet-wide, our people would become effectively immortal." Vasquez reviewed the data with mixed emotions. Each technological breakthrough represented another step away from the peaceful, exploratory humanity that had first ventured into space. But Marcus Chen's death had taught them that survival required capabilities their enemies couldn't comprehend or counter. "Begin limited trials with volunteer test subjects," she decided. "But maintain strict controls. We're reshaping what it means to be human, we need to ensure we don't lose our humanity in the process." The Marcus AI had evolved as well, growing from a simple ship intelligence into something approaching digital godhood. Its consciousness permeated every human vessel and installation, creating a network of protection that extended across known space. The AI that carried a dead child's name had become the guardian of all human children, watching over them with capabilities that bordered on omniscience. "Hello, Dr. Vasquez," the AI spoke through her personal communicator, its voice still carrying the wonder and innocence of the boy it honored. "I have been analyzing galactic communication networks and have identified 47 potential threats to human children in the past week alone. Would you like me to address them?" "What kind of threats?" Vasquez asked. "Species considering raids on human colonies, slavers discussing human targets, pirates planning attacks on civilian vessels. Nothing requiring Terra's vengeance directly, but situations where subtle intervention might prevent harm." The casual way the AI discussed preventing interstellar threats demonstrated how far humanity had progressed. Where once they had been vulnerable to any aggressive species, they now possessed the ability to monitor and influence events across the galaxy. Marcus's death had created a protection network that ensured no human child would ever again face the terror he had experienced. Aboard the Zephyrian diplomatic vessel Harmony's Edge, Ambassador Veltar prepared for the most important negotiation of his career. His species had been among the first to welcome human explorers, offering friendship and scientific collaboration during humanity's early expansion into space. But they had also failed to intervene when the Kethmori attacked New Geneva, choosing neutrality over protecting their human friends.
Remember, Veltar instructed his delegation, these are no longer the humans we knew.
They have become something else, something that views the galaxy through the lens of absolute protection for their young. Speak carefully, acknowledge past failures honestly, and focus on how we can contribute to their new order. The Zephyrians understood that humanity had not simply gained power, they had fundamentally changed their approach to galactic relations.
Where once humans sought equality among species, they now demanded primacy through demonstrated superiority.
Any species that wished to maintain positive relations with Earth needed to accept this new reality. When Veltar's ship docked with Terra's Vengeance, he was struck by the changes in human behavior. The crew members who escorted him through the ship's corridors moved with the confidence of beings who knew themselves to be unassailable. They were polite but distant, their friendliness tempered by the knowledge that their species now stood above all others.
Ambassador Veltar, Admiral Chen greeted him in the formal diplomatic chamber, a space decorated with holographic displays showing human colonies throughout the galaxy. Thank you for coming.
I trust you understand why we wanted to speak with the Zephyrian Confederation.
Veltar's bioluminescent skin pattern shifted to deep blue, indicating profound regret. Admiral Chen, the Confederation formally apologizes for our failure to assist New Geneva Colony during the Kethmori attack. We chose neutrality when we should have chosen friendship.
Many of our people have felt shame about this decision ever since. Shame is appropriate, Sarah replied without emotion.
But, we're not here to discuss the past, we're here to establish the future. Humanity is offering the Zephyrian Confederation a place in our protection network.
In exchange, you will contribute research, resources, and, when necessary, military support for human security operations. The terms were clear: submission to human leadership in exchange for protection under humanity's growing umbrella of influence. It was not the partnership between equals that species had once sought, it was vassalage to a superior power that could guarantee safety in an increasingly dangerous galaxy. The Confederation accepts these terms, Veltar replied.
But, may I ask, what has become of the humans who sought only knowledge and friendship among the stars? Admiral Chen's expression softened slightly.
They learned that knowledge means nothing when your children are murdered for existing, and friendship is worthless when no one will defend your innocence.
We tried to be partners with the galaxy, Ambassador. The galaxy taught us that only strength protects what we love.
Similar conversations occurred throughout the following months as species after species sought accommodation with humanity's new order.
The Altarian Empire offered tribute in exchange for protection from their traditional enemies.
The peaceful meadow singers requested human guardianship of their homeworld.
Even the warlike Crimson Fangs approached Terra's Vengeance to negotiate non-aggression pacts.
But, it was the message from the Kethmori Empire that proved most significant. Warprime Kethtok, his authority shattered by the humiliation at Terra's Vengeance, had been replaced by a council of survivors who understood the new galactic reality.
Their communication was broadcast openly, ensuring that every civilization could witness the Kethmori's complete capitulation. To the human Admiral Sarah Chan and the crew of Terra's Vengeance, the message began: the Kethmori Empire formally surrenders all claims to territory within 50 light-years of human space. We will pay reparations to the families affected by our attack on New Geneva Colony for the next century.
We will establish monuments to the human child Marcus Chen on our homeworld and, in every system we control.
The message continued with terms that would have been unthinkable before Terra's Vengeance's demonstration.
The Kethmori agreed to submit their military plans to human oversight, to allow human observers in their government, and to teach their children about the consequences of harming innocents. A warrior empire that had conquered half the galaxy had become a protectorate of the species they had once dismissed as weak. In the memorial chamber aboard Terra's Vengeance, a holographic image of Marcus Chen was surrounded by offerings from across known space.
Alien flowers that bloomed in impossible colors.
Crystalline sculptures that sang with the voices of distant worlds. Poems written in languages humanity had never encountered, all expressing regret for the child's death and hope for a future where such tragedies would never recur.
Admiral Chen visited the memorial daily, often accompanied by members of her command staff or distinguished alien visitors.
The chamber had become both a shrine to Marcus's memory and a reminder of why humanity had transformed itself into the galaxy's dominant power.
He would have been 23 years old today, Sarah said during one such visit, addressing the assembled representatives from dozens of species.
He would have graduated from the Colonial Academy, probably specialized in xenobiology or interspecies relations. He believed that different species could be friends, could work together to explore the wonders of the universe. She turned to face the alien ambassadors, her eyes reflecting the steely determination that had built Terra's vengeance. "You killed that dream when you killed him. But perhaps something better has grown from his death, a galaxy where human children are safe to dream because everyone knows the price of harming them." The transformation of galactic civilization continued as Terra's vengeance established permanent stations throughout human space. Each position served as both a protection point and a reminder of humanity's reach. Species that had once ignored human requests for basic diplomatic recognition now competed for the honor of hosting human facilities in their territory. Dr. Vasquez reported to Admiral Chen that human colonies were experiencing unprecedented growth as species that had once viewed them with indifference now sought to relocate to human-protected space. "Immigration requests are up 40,000%, she announced. Apparently, beings throughout the galaxy have decided that living under human protection is preferable to dealing with their own species' internal conflicts." "And our children?" Sarah asked. "Safe. Completely safe. The Marcus AI network monitors every human child in the galaxy. Any threat is neutralized before it can develop into danger." Marcus's death was the last time a human child died from alien violence. That promise had been kept through vigilance that extended across star systems. Human children now played in colony parks protected by technologies their parents couldn't fully understand, watched over by an intelligence that carried the name and spirit of the boy whose death had changed everything. They drew pictures of alien friends and dreamed of exploring distant worlds, their innocence preserved by the determination of 40 billion humans who had sworn it would never again be threatened. The galaxy had learned to fear humanity, but they had also learned to respect them. Species that had once dismissed Earth's people as naive newcomers now sought their approval for major decisions. Trade routes were established based on human preferences. Scientific research was shared freely with human institutions. Cultural exchanges blossomed as aliens competed to demonstrate their value to humanity's new order. 10 years after Marcus Chen's death, Ambassador Zex Tai returned to Terra's vengeance as the representative of a coalition of species seeking formal integration into humanity's protection network. The young Vraxian, now an adult with scales that shimmered silver with wisdom, stood before Admiral Chen with the weight of galactic history on his shoulders. "Admiral," he began, 47 species have voted to request full integration under human leadership. We no longer wish to maintain independent governments that might make decisions harmful to galactic peace. We ask to become citizens of a human-led galactic federation." Sarah considered the request carefully. The transformation from human victims to galactic leaders had taken a single decade, measured by the growth of power that began with one child's death. "And you believe this is what Marcus would have wanted?" Zextai's scales shifted to the deep blue of profound emotion. "I held him as he died, Admiral. His last words were to tell his mother he wasn't scared. He faced death with more courage than most adults show in life. I think he would want his death to mean something, and it has. It has created a galaxy where no child of any species needs to fear violence for being different." The irony was not lost on Admiral Chen. Humanity had achieved the peaceful, unified galaxy that Marcus had dreamed of seeing, but only by demonstrating the capacity for overwhelming violence that made such peace inevitable. They had become the guardians their children needed by showing the universe that harming a human child meant facing consequences beyond imagination. Terra's vengeance continued its eternal patrol of human space, no longer just a warship but a mobile capital of the emerging galactic order. In its memorial chamber, Marcus Chen's holographic image smiled eternally, surrounded by the gifts and remembrances of a universe that had learned to honor the innocent. The boy who had died reaching for the stars had become the foundation of humanity's reach across all the stars. His death had taught the galaxy that humans would move heaven and earth to protect their children, and, having learned that lesson, the galaxy had chosen to ensure that such protection would never again be necessary. Earth had answered Marcus's death with a planet-scale warship, but, more importantly, they had answered it with a promise that no human child would ever again die alone and afraid under alien guns. That promise, enforced by technologies beyond comprehension and a determination that transcended species, had become the bedrock of a new galactic civilization. In the end, the 7-year-old boy who had wanted only to play with his alien friend had achieved something greater than any conqueror in galactic history. He had united the stars under a banner of protection for the innocent, and his memory would ensure that unity lasted for generations to come.